If we take like a typical YAML file, say person.yaml, YAML or YAML. So, so the syntax itself is slightly interesting. You can see like a Python indentation. You don't have like a braces. If you go for like a this ebook.json, you have like everything key value like this. So if you go for XML, you have a key and a value. Two tags will be there. Whereas here a single time will get. But this syntax is something difficult. To make the payload to be furthermore less, generally we use these serializations and deserializations whenever you want to communicate, right, with another different language. So mainly for the REST APIs and others you use. But so there is a stage where people thought of replacing the entire JSON with YAML, but still that is not happening. But there is a different story. But how these YAMLs are working? So like JSON object notation, YAML is also one kind of format which will actually tell. If I say YAML, so it is yeah. So we can say yeah, this is the official website of YAML. You can see that YAML int so markup language. So means again YAML isn't markup language. If you know the example of a GNU Linux, we say right. So GNU not Unix, GNU not Unix, recursively telling, right? Like that. YAML not markup language. What do you mean by markup language? HTML is a markup language. HTML is not a programming language, right? You just give the syntax based upon that, the parser will read in that way. In the same fashion, it's not a programming language, it's a syntax, but the programming language will detect. So if you see, if I diminish all, everything is under the person. If I go in detail, I have the address, so hobbies and all these things. And did you observe? For some sections, it's a simple value, but for some sections, you have multiple values. When I have multiple values, I am not placing any hyphens here. See here. Whereas in this example, I have a section. Within that, I have another section. And sometimes I have a name, sometimes I have a phone number, and sometimes I have reading. So like this. And did you see that there is a hyphen also? And I didn't write the hyphen for all the things. So what is this kind of a YAML file? So if I take like one more example for this YAML files, let's take, say, data.yaml. In this example, it's a very simple example. Did you see that I wrote a colon? I have written like a hyphens. So like I have written like this P and the hyphens and colon. So first we understood about what are the different kinds of things that we have. Now we can think about how to work with that. So first of all, if you want to work with a YAML file, I already created one YAML file. We need to read that YAML file. Say, if I want to read an YAML file, we have seen just now the person YAML file, this YAML files and others. Let's say I want to read that YAML file. If you want to read a YAML file, we have a module called as PyYAML. YAML is not like a built-in, so we need to work with that. So as you know, the standard process -u current user. So if you are the only user, fine, but it's a best practice. So pip install -u PyYAML, so user. So like that it is working. It will install that module and it will be working. Now subsequently, observe, not every module will have the same names as the installation. When you are installing, you say PyYAML, but when you are using, you should say YAML itself. So within that, what are the attributes we have? Print of dir of YAML. If I navigate to this directory, copy path, so Python, so and so, you can see the list of attributes. A long chain of things are there. So there were a lot of constants and further also a lot of operations. Especially the concept is same everywhere. Load, load all, load s, and dump all, dump s. And so for this, they have added few other things like serialization. So safe load and all these things. There were quite good number of features which were added. But if I say clear and Python a so and so, you got these as the attributes. Now I showed you one file called as person.yaml. It is in the current directory, person.yaml. If I need to load that file, see how we need to do is like the process is same everywhere. So with open of what are the file name? Even for a binary files, you need to use open. So that's the only syntax. And what is the operation that you want to do? Read. If you don't want to give also fine, but if you give also explicitly, it works. And if I say file handler, it works. So if I need to get the person data is equal to, so YAML dot load. So when I'm loading, I should give the file handler, whatever is it. Earlier, people used to load directly, but there is a lot of issues which have come lately because of so loading. So due to that, they are saying to use something called a safe loader. Safe loader means if there is any kind of say, when loading, it will process everything. If you write like a statement to delete all the files, rm-rf, then it will delete everything. To avoid that, to safely load, it will load like a strings. So now it has loaded. As I told you, it is not a iterable object, direct thing. I can directly print the values. Now, if I go ahead and ask, did you see that I got all these details? And if I use like a preprint, as I told you, from preprint, if I do import pp, hope you remember I told the difference between pprint and pp. pp means it will print, but in the same order, whereas pprint will sort the key values and do. So what I'm doing, the YAML file, I'm converting to Python dictionary. It's not a JSON, it's a Python dictionary for us to understand. So whatever the file is there, what kind of syntaxes are there, everything is coming. If you remember, I told at the first level, everything is into the same one, right? So, oh, sorry, everything into the same one. So that's why everything came like a key and the value. Within that, if I go further, I have these things further in next level. If you see, I have these ones. As the name, age, and so gender were like individual values, you got like that. But others were having sub elements. So that's why they were treated like a key and the values. And did you see here, I wrote like the again a key values. So means within that, it's a sub. And if you go for the contact numbers, I have written email. And in the phone number, I have subdivision again, right? So that's why it got like that. If I go to the hobbies, within hobbies, I didn't write it like this, but I wrote a hyphens. Observe, the moment I write a hyphens, those are called as like an array. So you can list a tuple, doesn't matter, right? YAML cannot understand. It will treat like an array only. So they call it as scalar values and others. And again, if you see in the education sector, I have two arrays, each containing these key values. So that's why you see in education, you got like two arrays, each were having like a dictionary of key values. So this is the one kind of thing I want to show for all. If you see the employment, it has two arrays, each containing key values of all the things. So this is the one short stop for you to show. So there are different ways of loading. So load, and there is one more attribute called as safe load. So, so lately they came up with, so YAML dot safe load, safe load of the file handler. In fact, if you do like this also, it should do the same answer. Instead of that, if I do like this also, it should do the same. Yeah, the same operation. Instead of you explicitly giving like loader equal to safe load or so and so. In fact, there is one more thing called as ordinary load, but that load operation, so, so the security best practice, it's not a good idea. So this is all about this YAML file. Next, okay, sir. So if you want to read like multiple YAML files or the documents, so let's see. I have shown you one more YAML file like this, right? I have written like so like this means there were like multiple YAML documents. You can think like that. If you want to parse these multiple YAML files, so I can write a PY file where, so we give the same thing. What are the logic I have? I give the data.yaml, which we saw, and the load all. So earlier used what? Either a load or like safe load. These are two ways. Now I'm doing like load all. Why I'm using load all means I'm getting like multiple docs. If you see here, if I say print docs only, in fact, I need not be here, right? I can go outside. If I say print docs, so without going initially first, I have this document containing two documents. I say clear and Python v so and so. Did you see that it's a generator object? So when you have like multiple documents, when you're doing load all, it is doing like a generator object. When you have a generator object, so you should do within the context. If you do outside the context, it will throw an error. Hope you understood. Earlier, we got like a individual dictionary. So that's why we have worked outside. Whereas here, as it is creating a generator object, we cannot work outside. Within the context only we should do. So if I do right now, load all, did you see that every time it is creating a generator object which is containing these values individually. So each time you look through, you got each value separately. So that is the beauty of load all when you want to load multiple documents. Next, so after that, we have how do you want to write a YAML file? Similarly, if you want to write a YAML file, if I say py, I have like some values and I want to write those files. So for that, what I do, I have a list of these things and I would say user.yaml of yaml.dump of this thing. So when you are dumping, you get like the result, which is the data. If I say here and Python this so and so. Did you see that you got none? None because there is no exception. So there is no error or anything. So dump generally won't return anything. So you can just execute. So whatever the content you have. So it will execute perfectly. But if you see ls, you can see your so users.yaml file. So I can say cat users.yaml file. So whatever the key values I have, you are getting in the same fashion here. So that is all about YAML.dump. In the same fashion, if you want to dump to a YAML string, so till now I'm working every time either to write to a file or read from a file. What if I want to write to a string, YAML string? So if you have the same data and if I want to dump, earlier you remember I told YAML.dump of, I gave the file handler. So now what I will do, YAML.dump of, you give the values directly. So when you give the values directly without the file handler, it will understand that it should create a string. So in fact, the entire content is like a string of content. And similarly, if I go for serialization is for any object, right? I have gone for a list of dictionaries. What if I go for another thing? Say I purely go for an ordinary dictionary. If you go for the dictionary key values, and I'm saying YAML string 1 is equal to YAML.dump of the string. If you see now, this one also converted and you got the results. So in fact, I did both the statements in the same line. That's why you could see the things like that. But if I add like a slash in here, or rather I do in the other way. So in both ways it works. If you see now, it's a string and you got the values. Why you got like this column? Because it's a white space, right? That's a point. So nothing more than that. If you want, if I do like this, you will understand. Fine, right? So when you have a dictionary, it converted YAML.dump. Similarly, if I go for like a complex thing, and before that I want to show, you have like true and false, right? Did you see what happened? Like a JSON, true and false came. And when you have a none, it became like null. In the last line, so I want to show with like a tuple containing tuple, right? When I have a tuple, it don't understand it's like a tuple. But did you see what it told? hey, it is like a Python tuple it wrote. Means when you are retrieving back, it will retrieve back. So if I have multiple things like this, it can understand. So I think you have these values. Let me place it in the next line. So if I have E and if I have F also, say like I have F, which is like a list of say mango. If I have, if you see now what happened, when you have a list, so list is coming directly, but when you have a tuple is coming like this, so that we can retrieve back. Okay, sir. So let's try something else. Instead of that saying, I would call it as a dict. So for us to better understand, this is for like, tuple for us to understand. And this is like, okay. So if I give tuple and this one, it will understand the other way. Let me give the last one, which is the set. If I go for E, so most of the time the trouble creator is this one. So EFG, okay, FG, G, okay. If I take like a set of like three values, if you see now what will happen. So I got like a set of three values, 1, 2, 3. So how it is treating C. So one for so and so, two for so and so, like that. Okay. So you have created like a YAML string. So you have dumped it. But how do you retrieve from the YAML string back? Load, right? So I have like YAML dot load. So load for that, if I give this YAML string 1, so retrieved data is equal to something I wrote, and I'm printing this retrieved data. So it is saying what? It is having say loader is missing. So safe loader. So I told right. If you say like so loader is equal to so YAML dot safe loader. If I give, it works perfectly. So what it is saying, I had an issue when I'm parsing like the tuple. So you need to work. So I think I will give this as an assignment for you. I know how to solve this bug, but like address this bug and try to address it. So th there are multiple loads. Safe load is there. Using safe load also we can do, but still you'll get the issue. There is a way to address it. The assignment is it like, so troubleshoot to address this issue. Okay. Of say this one. Okay. So it is unable to parse this one. So you need to know how to do that. So you are getting this kind of encoding error. So the last thing, so when you are doing this kind of loading and dumping, so we can also do the things in a sorted way, and there are multiple options for that. And similarly, I think the next thing that we can see after this YAMLs is like YAML, we have something called as Toml. So, so like YAML, they have created Toml also. Toml also is most common. YAML is nowadays used in almost all configurations. If you go for like Docker, Kubernetes, everywhere there is a configuration, they will write with YAML file. So there is one more thing called as Toml. So I will quickly walk through these Tomls to make you understand. So Toml, same in the same lines they created it. Some of the places they are used. Like YAML, it is called as Tom's obvious minimal language. So if you want to work the same story, so we need to install that module. By default, it will not be there. And so if you are having some kind of Toml files, so let me give one example of a sample Toml file. Say, yeah. So basically, Toml is slightly different compared to YAML in a sense that it will have sections also. If you go for the YAML file, we have everything like a so scalar and vectors, values like that. Whereas it has like sections. It's like a INI file. If you know, there are two types of config files called as CFG and INI. So this is kind of like an INI file, which can help you. So constants, values, everything we can store, and we can retrieve the values. If you are using so toml.load, so for loading the values, if same the story, so we need to read from a file, toml.load, that file handler, you get the data. Similarly, if I say 08 clear and Python a so and so, did you see how it is retrieving? When you are loading the entire Toml file, it has loaded like this. And similarly, I can use this parser data, which is like a dictionary, right? Python dictionary. If I want to dump like a Toml string, I have given. And if I ask to print, it is converting to Toml string again. And again, if you want to write to a new file called as new Toml file, the same content, toml.dump of that. So now it is doing to writing to a new file called as new file.toml. So like that, you can read any Toml file, you can work on any Toml file. And especially if you have like a string also, you can parse. So Toml string, say if I say B, Toml string, if I have, I can parse the Toml string. How I have written like the file, like that I have written like a string. The same string, if I want to load, I can do load from the strings. So they have added, they're saying toml. So there is another module called as toml which was added. So they are saying that we can use, but I couldn't use it because we were in the older version. If you see Python hyphen version, you can see that we are 3.10. That's the reason I'm importing that. In 3.11 onwards, they added it into the built-in modules. If some module is being added to the built-in, you can understand what is its importance. So in future, it can get a lot of traction. So that's why few places they are using Toml. So fine. In the same fashion, when you are loading, same like dump as, load as. This is the same strategy for all serialization techniques. But the way that they use is slightly different. It has the sections as I told. So sections will be like this, and we can use. And the load. So whenever you're loading also, we can load. So if these braces are pointing in a different direction, it can throw an error. Means Toml has its own decode error also. Because these are all, so binary files, we have all these things. So similarly, like Toml, you have other things like HDFS, Delta Lake, Parquet file. So, but I would reserve those files till the last when I'm working with the data, so I can explain there. So next thing, so we can see is about the multimedia files is also there, but I think we don't need to work with the images that much. Say, if you have any images or something, we can work with the pill module, but I don't want to work with the images now. But one thing I want to bring to your notice is the zip files. So, so like these things, there will be different kinds of file formats for different purposes. If you see on a daily basis, the zipping. If you know the zip files, there are three types of zips, the most common things. Generally, gunzip files. So gunzip files means if we have some kind of zipping, so we can work with that. I will make it a quick note by adding it like this. Yeah. See, Gunzip is the most famous thing. So everywhere use, even in terms of the server-based encryptions, compressions, everywhere use it. So as I told, it's not about encryption, it is compression and decompression. Especially whenever a web server, a REST API is serving a large data. So to make traverse all the way in the network, to make it lightweight, so they use it. Or like even when you're storing also, we can use it. So when it is having like an ordinary file operations, it also has a binary mode and text mode. So the same logic we have. But it in addition has like even executables also. Till now, read, write, append. So that's what we know, right? It is having executable also. So same thing for this one also. If you see the documentation, the point. So what we are doing, yeah, first, if you want to work with this one, this is how we need to do. .zz. So if you do like a write W, means like a binary file format. So oh, sorry. Okay. So if you see here, so write. So here, if I say here, I have f.write of the binary data. As I opened in a binary format, I'm also writing in the binary format. So binary string. So this is what you need to remember every time. And when I'm extracting in the same fashion, see, like a ordinary open, we are doing gzip.open. So here also like ordinary open, gzip.open. So they created a module like that. So we can directly do. Instead of you using open module and doing that extra, they have done that inherently. So the syntax is very simple to understand. And similarly, if you want to compress a string and write to the gzip file, if I have some content, so I can read the content and I can, compress to that. When I'm compressing, as it is a binary data, I cannot do like an ordinary string. Either I need to place a B before it, or I need to do an encode. If I do an encode, the default encoding is UTF-8, right? It will encode and these are two ways of writing. In the same fashion, when you're reading the data, so we get the each of the line from that, and we can do a decode. So if you don't decode, you will get like a byte string. And also if you want to append the things, means same like an ordinary file append operation, we can do A, B, and we can write. So whatever you're writing will be added at the end. So similarly, it also has the file handler error. So file not found error. If you're trying to open for something, same operations like an ordinary open thing. That's why it is very easy for working. And it also has like other issues like memory management and other kinds of things. So gunzip. And like gunzip, there is one more thing. So we have something called as tar files. If you are working with Linux environments, you might have came across one of this called as .tar files. So if you want to write a tar file, we can use the tar module, which is coming built in. Tar modules, yeah. So to work with, so typically, I work with something called as a tar file, which is a Python module, which is built in. So first, I want to create a folder and I want to place all my files within that. So how do you create a new folder and work on it? Means I can do like os.mkdir of, say like I'm writing files. Then it will create a files folder. If I navigate back to this directory, copy path, I clear, and if I say ls, I have only one file, right? One file. If I say I create a file and I want to change the directory, chdir of that files, means I just don't want it outside, but within this I want to create a folder and I want to add the things within it. Say for that, what I need to do? If I execute, what will happen? Clear and Python. So a so and so. So if I say ls, did you see a new folder came? And if I say ls files, I got nothing. In fact, if I do tree, you can see that files is empty. And what if I run the same command again to clear the screen and run? It will throw an error that file already present. Means mkdir will work if the file is present. If the file is present, you don't want to do. Then what you need to do? os.path.exists of that particular file name, files. So if it is exists, you don't want to create. Means if not exists, you want to create, right? So this is what your intention. So if I execute again, did you see now it's working perfectly? But you did like this kind of condition. So instead of we doing these two lines with os dot make dirs. So if you remember make dirs, I told that files is what we have mentioned. Here also we do the same thing. It also throws an error, but it has an optional thing like exit OK is equal to true. Exit OK equal to true means if the file is present, it will not create, just exit. If it file is not present, it will delete. So if I say tree right now, I have the file. If I say rm-rf files, be careful about this one. If I do like a tree, you can notice that file is no more present. Now, if I execute this program, it will create it. If I say tree, it is creating, right? This is one thing I want to bring to your notice. Now, if I want to create like 3 files with some content, so if I just want to create it, so this is also a way. Till now, what you know, I use open and I assign to a file handler. With that, you do write, right? This is not a correct way of doing, but quickly we can do like this. This is also one way of doing. If I do execute, if I say like tree right now, did you see in this tree, I have a files, and within that file, I have 3, right? If I want to see the content, say if I say files slash, so file 1. So you can see that this is line 1. This is line 2, like that you got it. I didn't write like a new line. So that's why it's coming like this. If you want, like I can write like new line at the end. For this also slash n. For this also slash n. So if I execute right now, oh, it will not write. Again, we need to execute, right? If I execute again, if I say tree, I got it. If I say cat this file, did you see that this is a line 1? New line also came. So this is how you create an ordinary things. From this, if you want to create an archive, means you have either these fields created dynamically like this, or somewhere some files are there in the local. If you want to create an archive, using tar file also we can do dot open of the dot tar. So we should specify the write mode, and we need to add the file names. The moment you add the file names, it will create this one. If I execute again, if I see the tree, did you see that there is one tar file in the directory? So that's how. So if I want to open the tar file back again, so we can use that. Again, open of tar file, mode is equal to append. So means appending with the existing archive file, and I want to add the third file. Earlier there were only 2 files. Now I want to add this third file also. So I can do that. If I do now, if I say tree right now, so the same things within the tar file also we have. And if I want to delete these files, my existing files, I can remove this. Now you see in the very superb thing, I'm able to create this folder, create these files, add to the tar file, and I'm deleting it. So if I execute right now, if I say the tree right now, you can see. So so in tar files, so we can do with the Linux commands also to extract the tar files. And also if I do make a read mode, I can read that also. That is also a way. But I just want to tell the other side also story. So if I go with Linux, in Linux, if you have a tar file, so there is a standard process. So tar is like a built-in one, -x, z, vc, something you give, and we need to go to that particular things. As it is in the files folder, I have the tar file. I think I need to see the list. Oh, it is in the files. I need to go to the files. And if I say tar hyphen so and so, tar file ones dot so and so, it is saying that it's not a zip folder. If it is like just a typical tar.gz, generally tar files will be also with zipped files. If I have a typical tar file, I think this is a confusing syntax. Clear, ls, I have that file. Yeah, tar hyphen xvc, so v5, and give the tar file. So now we got the things right. So if I see like the tree right now, these 3 files came again because it extracted. So this is a command to extract the Linux command to extract tar files. Okay, so we can use this one, tar hyphen xe so and so. And like, so in the same fashion, if you are in a particular directory also we can use, but that is okay. Now coming back, So after writing, if you want to extract the same files programmatically, so programmatically means like I can use extracting tar files. So for that, the same logic again I will place, but simply I will explain here. So we can use tar files.open and we can use tar files.extract. It is saying, see here, Pylance is supporting me. Hey, you are using the extract method and it is deprecated and it is replaced with, so, filter. So without specifying the filter is deprecated. So when data is filtered, it will be so and so. Does not work for several extraction issues. That's why they are doing for extract all method. That's what they say. So I should replace. This is how any module they create, they give the latest versions and they will change the things. So if I do like extract all, it should lead, but seems like even extract all also changed. So fine. If I see here, so typically what here they're doing as extraction is like a difficult. So they're saying sensitive data will be there. So don't do directly, but do with a safe extract. Safe extract means nothing. You go for each of the member and individually check whether it is a member of it or not and extract. That's it. Nothing more. It's a very simple logic. So the same thing we did it programmatically also for us to understand. And the last thing. So whenever you are working with the files, we have something called as in the zip files called as zip files. If you are working in Windows, the most common thing you see is zip files, right? So how do you create these zip files and how do you work with these zip files? If I go for the zip files, if I want to create a zip file, uh, it's a very simple thing. If you want to create a zip, means like first we need to have a folder. So the zip folder I create, and within that I want to create a zip file. So for creating a zip file, we need to write whatever we want to write. Say, earlier you remember I have created the files individually and added to that. Now all I want to do in one shot. So for that, what I'm doing, see here. If you see here, you can notice that I'm creating a zip file.zip file of the output file. So what are the file handler I have? So for that, I am giving this F, say like uh, write and compression technique I'm specifying. Within zip file, there are like multiple compression techniques. So you see here, zip file stored, zip file deflatted, bzip2. So these are algorithms. So, deflatted is the common thing. So within that, we want to write. When you are writing, we should specify the write string. So write string of what are the file name and within that file name, what are the contents. Means you need not explicitly create a file and add the content. File also we can create at this stage and adding the. Sure. So unlike the previous case, we can write the file and everything here itself. If you see here in this example, if I go one level above and go to this zip files here and Python so and so. If I say ls right now, did you see there is a tar file? Sorry, zip file. So within that zip file, it will automatically create these files and others. So if I say Linux command to read the zip file, we have something called as unzip. Yeah. Unzip -l. If I give this temp.zip file, did you see that how much I got? Unzip so and so means if I give, I got this one. I got like only one entry, right? Entry.txt. So if I say like tree right now, so within that I have this one. Just if I want to just list, I have gone like this. But if I want to extract the values, we can give the things. So -l is list the content. So if I don't give that -l, it will extract the things. If I say without that, you can see that it is deflecting. If I say ls, I have that entry.txt, which is there. And if I say cat entry1.txt, you got the content. My heroes are cowboys. So like that, you have created and everything there. In the same fashion, if you want to do the same thing for multiple files, so whatever the files you have, you need to just place all the files in one shot. So instead of one file right now, I will write all the things. entry1.txt, entry2.tsf.csv file. So I didn't have a file handler name also, extension. And I have written like this. So, and I have written, if you see right now in this case, did you see it has created? And if I say tree, by default, I will have only entry1.txt because the other files I didn't extract. If I do like a list only to see how many files are there, I can say the list. You can see in that these many files are there. And before even extracting, and did you see in this case, did you understand one interesting thing here? I have written the same thing twice, right? Entry 5, entry 5. So the same thing I wrote two times. So if I do like this, will it happen? Because there can be two files with the same text, but can I have two files with the same name within the same one? If I do, it is throwing an error. So what is saying? Hey, you have a duplicate entry. So the beauty, right? It was not allowing us. And it is saying it's a user warning. So means did it create is the first question. So tree, unzip, unzip -f so and so. Did you see you got an entry one? And also let me give a different context. Okay. Say like this is the first line. This is another line. This is another line. I just want to check whether it has created or not. If I execute again, it throws an error. So if I say tree, I got it. And if I say unzip -l, it has that entry. So if I do the same unzip without an L, I should get the entire content. What it is saying, hey, you already have entry one locally. Do you want to replace? If I say L to replace all the existing things, it has done now. And did you see deflating entry 4, entry 4, two times you have given. And if I say entry 4, entry 4, if I say cat, did you see this is another line came? And if I say ls, you can see that entry 4 is coming only once. Means, did you see that this is a user warning? It is not an error, in fact. It is user warning. For the first time, you have seen a warning, right? So like that, sometimes you will see warnings, especially when you are comparing with the is object with two numbers. Then also you will get a warning. If I go for like IPython, and if I, so if I say, so 4 equal to 4, it's good, right? And if I say 4 is 4, as both are integers, it will say syntax warning. So like that, there are many warnings are there, in fact. Exit. Fine. So now you understood how do you create a zip file. Similarly, when you're creating the zip file, I have created every content directly like this, but I want to make it something more smart. So for that, if I want to do, I can rely on something called as environment variables to do it. See what I'm trying to do. In the current directory, I want to get the user profile. Generally in Windows, we have user profile. I just want to check in Linux whether there is a user profile. If I go for interactive mode, and if I say import OS, so os.environ, right? So, oh shit, man. IPython import os.environ of, you give in quotes the user profile. It is saying that there is no user profile. And if I want to know what is there in Linux for the same dot keys, I got like this a good number of keys. It's crazy for each in so and so. Maybe like I want to print each of that. So you got something. Say I have user. User is something which is the nearest. So and also we'll have home, I guess. In Linux we'll have host name. Host name. So okay, user bin directory or like user directory like that. You'll have something. You can take that particular thing and you can replace. So simply to say, what are the directory path it will give. And if you want to do in the downloads instead of locally, I have taken like this. So it works in Linux, sorry, Windows. So a profile is not there. Maybe like what I will do, if it is not there, I will do with the current directory. That's what, right? If it is a Linux, you don't have it. Or you platform dependent also we can do whatsoever we want. To make it simple, I have done like this. In the current directory only, it will do like a downloads and it will try to do. So it will go and do. But basically in the current directory, there won't be downloads, right? So then how do you it will know? So to do it, so we need to do os.mkdars, right? So for that, so I can do os.m make drs of the given path and exit true equal to true. If I do, this folder will be created first. Within that folder, a zip folder we are opening, and you're using os.walk of that particular path and trying to get each of the files and do. Basically, what I wrote a logic is that whatever the files which are there in the downloads, if I want to zip them periodically, this is one of like automation script you can do for yours itself. You can write a small program. So I think it would be interesting for you. Take an assignment. So use this program. So to automate, so downloads folder backup. This is doing like downloads folder backup. It is going to the downloads folder and trying to do a backup of it. So schedule that Python script to run daily at some time using so Windows scheduler. You will also understand what is a Windows scheduler. If you go in a Windows standard, you have that. So make this as an assignment. It would be very interesting for you. I think like we worked good amount of things about the zip files. Similarly, there is something about the PDFs. I just want to quickly give a glance because so tomorrow when you're doing automations, this chapter is most practical and useful for you. Whenever you want to create a PDF files, there are multiple modules for creating the PDFs. So the first thing is about the report lab. So this is the most common module you can see, report lab. So report lab is for like creating many things. I can give like a simple example. Report lab, as I told you, here if you want to install anything, pip install report lab. If I do, it will install that module and do. You have installed it. So if I navigate back to this directory, cd, so 05 file operations, clear and Python 01, so and so. In fact, Report Lab is a third party. So if you go to this website, they themselves has a lot of information. So to make your life easy, say Python PDF. Yeah. You just go. Report Lab is having a documentation. It's a very good documentation for you to understand a lot of concepts. How does it work? The basic concepts. How to create a small hello world. So how to the output comes, what kind of canvas we need to have. And for all these things, they have it. So it is saying like, I have this one, but I am unable to read this font. So here it's what the point is. I have added a font. So it is expecting that particular font to have. So let me pull that font also. Yeah. So basically from now you will understand few things. Whenever you are opening a text file, that is very easy. Text is very simple, right? So whatever you have, the same thing you will get. But when you are going for these kind of encoding files, we need to add the content differently. So everything, if I want to add, like, let me open that. These are like kind of encoding files. You cannot directly see. Generally, we cannot directly do. So we should I have created it. It's an encoded file. We cannot understand anything. So by default, it's a content which is like we cannot understand anything. So if I create clear and execute again, so I think there is a issue here. So the point is like most of the time we need to download it. So if you give that same name uh, offline, so you can download it. There are like .tff file. TFF means like the fonts. Basically for every font, we need to go. So there are like font specific files. You can specify what font you want and you can download it. Sir, why this much? Because if you want to create a file, PDF file or anything file, you should know what font, page canvas, and all this information. So those are very much needed, else we cannot do. So that is the reason when you're working, you need to have all this information. Or let me take a very simple example to understand this one. A simple example to say is, say a simple example dot py. If I go for this one, it's a very simple case. I'm not going for complicated. I'm creating like a simple PDF. I'm taking canvas.canvas of the file name and the page size. Page size is letter A1, A4, A3, like that we have, right? So what is the drawstring? So that length and so width, how much you want, and you are giving it. So if I say Python a so and so, it should create that file. If I say here in the directory, I could see a new file, right? It's not able to read the PDF files. It's very simple. You need to go for like PDF reader. If I ask, it will give some Visual Edge Studio PDF reader. It is giving. It's not available in the Visual Studio Code for the web. So maybe you can say something which is more famous among all 1.9 markup PDF viewer. So something it's interesting. So I have done. So it should do automatically if I close everything, close all. And if I go again, uh, I think so I was somewhere else. Yes, PDF. Yeah, it read right. You can see a typical PDF. It created like a letter pad and in that it added it. So that is how you get like a typical simple PDF. Now, if I go further, if I want to create a PDF with multiple pages, I can go PDF multiple pages .py. If I go, so the same thing, we create the canvas. The same canvas we use for multiple things. So I'm doing like I'm doing like this one and move to the next page. Show page will go to the next page. So Python b so and so I have done. Now you can see that one more page came, multiple pages. If you see page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, like that. It is going for multiple pages. So if I say like, in the same fashion, if I want to add some kind of images and other things, so I need to know where the images are there. As of now, I cannot work with various images. So let me make it very simple. See PDF with images.py. As I cannot add a PDF here, it's difficult. So I'm just leaving it. But let's say if you have a canvas, the same canvas, if you want to draw an image right now, so I should use draw image. Earlier I did a draw text, right? So I did like a draw image. And similarly, if you want to draw shapes and lines, so we can do like, so draw shapes lines .py. And if I specify it, you can see clear and Python d so and so. It will write it. See here, it is doing the same canvas and you are doing the set stroke means like styling. So if you want to draw a rectangle, and similarly, what is the width? And then you are drawing a line. So if I go for this one, you can notice that it is doing what? So PDF with lines and shapes. Did you see? It has created something, a lines and shapes. So like that, there are multiple operations. You can just walk through this. There are multiple things. If you want to create a PDF, images and all, and if you want to add the tables to the HTML, this is what, whenever you're doing an automation, this is one of the requests you get. So add tables. So add tables.py. So whenever you have some content, let's say I have some data, I want to create a document. I would do like a simple doc template, and I add this styling and do it. If you say Python is so and so, you can see that it is creating a new file, PDF with tables. I have some PDF with some tabular content. So why I'm telling all these things? Because these will be helping you in real world rather than anything else. But next, there is another thing called as reading CSV files. So for reading CSV files, there were a good number of modules. So as you need to know how to work with a module and reading that, um, this is all for writing. Report lab is extensively for writing. So if you want to read the files, say if I say uh, EF, read PDFs.py. If you want to, so if you want to read the PDF file, we have something called as PyPDF miner. So PyPDF2. These are all modules we have. So if you want to read these files, we need to work with any of these modules to work. Say I'm going for PyPDF2. Pip install PyPDF2. So the same process again to work. But with Report Lab, we can just create a file, PDF only. But it is not that easy to read a PDF file, because not every time it would be that easy. So if you want to work, see how I'm installing PyPDF2 like that. But when I'm using PyPDF2 like this, I need to use. That's why some modules, the name and the usage will be slightly different. You have a file name, you need to read that and do it. Say like I have any file, let's say I have something like, so PDF with, so simple PDF one, right? I will give that simple underscore PDF one.pdf. Okay. Simple. So one PDF dot clear and Python f so and so. Did you see that it is saying PDF reader is removed? So PDF2 use PDF reader. So they're saying like this module is no more. So we should use PDF reader instead of that. So PDF reader only I'm using. So I think like what it is saying. So PDF reader is deprecated. You need to use PDF reader instead. Okay, file reader. Instead of file reader, we should use PDF reader. Yeah, I have used it. So it is saying the syntax was changed now. So just you need to walk through that. Just take this as an assignment. Try to understand how to work with a new module and try to add the things. So if you want, I can add more details of different examples by next class, but take that as a challenge to add the things to you. And lastly, before closing this file operations, so the another important thing within these files is about config files. You might have seen config files already. YAML files, everyone says is a config file. But before the advent of YAML files also, we have config files. So if you want to work with config files, typically there is something called as .cfg files. So earlier I have told few things. Now if I can combine them together, a typical CFG file will be like this. You can imagine like a Toml file, right? In fact, Toml file was created with a combination of YAML and config files only. So if you want to work with these config files, everything will have a section. Every section will have that square braces, and we will use. And if you want to read or write these config files, we need to use the thing. Let's say if you want to create a config file. So for working with config file, there is a module, and this is again a small difference. In Python 2, it is called as config parser, capital P. In Python 3, like this. Why are they made like this? Someone who created from the Java side, they use it the same syntax. In Java, they use like that, right? So Java also has config parser, the same process here also it works. So config parser also have like raw config parser, safe config parser. So configurations, because configurations are like the most key, right? So like raw config parser, you have safe config parser also you can use. So you need to add the sections. I showed you the sections, right? This is section 1, section 2. Within that, you have the values. If you want to do the same thing, I have done. So section 1, within that section, each section, what is the key value? Key value. So key value. Did you see here? Under section 1. So we should give the same section 1. So whenever you are setting values. Section 2, you are doing a set. So and so. So you can add multiple sections. When you're adding set the values, we should specify the section and the key and the value. And when you're writing the file, same like an ordinary file, but .cfg. If I do right now, it can work. So Python a so and so, you can see that config file is there. So example.cfg, the same file, whatever we have shown previously. Similarly, if I want to read the config file data, so whatever I had done in the same fashion, but with again an open statement like this. You see, I have read a raw config file. I am .config.read. And the beauty of config file is that if the file is not there, it will not throw an error, but it will not read anything. But after reading, you need to do like config dot so and so. Means you know you are not assigning to anything. That's why the syntax is slightly different. You read the config, that's it. It will store everything like in memory, you can sync to this config object. So then from there you need to do, when you're loading, you can load in a particular way. If you know that that is a floating point value, you can say config.getFloat. Means when it is loading, it will load and convert to float. Or else you can just get and convert to a float using float built-in function. Or similarly, you can do .getFloat. Get float, get boolean, get integer. If the data type is not a boolean, so if it is data period is not a string, so not a floating point value, you can get an exception. But if they are so and so, you can get. So like they see here, get boolean of so and so. So if it is boolean, is there, then you are getting it. So like that, you can safely do the loadings. So when you reads, and also when you are reading, we can explicitly get. Here in this case, I told that a specific data type, and I'm loading like that. So everything is a string. But if you want to load directly, you don't want to think anything else, you can directly do config.set of section 1, so and so. When you are getting this value, so for the foo, you are trying to retrieve the value. So we have the foo. So for foo, what are is there? Bar is bars like that. So you are saying like fun. So Python is fun. So like that. And did you observe that in this section, the last key, so value is also kind of key. Means it has bar, which is already key, bars, which is also already a key. So instead of getting this percentile so and so, it will replace with directly. You see here, when you want it in a raw fashion, you are doing like this, 1. If I do like a 0, so you are getting the parsing of that content. Okay, like this, we have the .cfg files. In the same fashion, you have .ini files. Then nothing difference, same thing like this one. So, but what they say is like, INA files are created for Windows. For CFG files are created for the Linux. That's what they say. But in fact, in the evolution, there used to be a lot of competition between Windows and Linux environments. Everyone used to work in silos. You remember? So that used to be history. Now, no. But at the time, they used to do. In the same fashion, if you have an INA file also, you can load in the same way. If you have anything, say like if I take the example of a typical INA files. So INA files you will see everywhere. Even if you see in your Windows files, you can see a lot of INA files. If I take, say, I have one section. So it is a section, URL, password like that. Nothing different. Almost all syntax is same. If I have like, say, interpolations also, we can do same like config file, CFG file. Here also we can do interpolations. What do you mean by interpolations means? If some of the things are already an attributes. If you see in this example, I have protocol, server, and port. These are also like present here. Then they will be interpreted and you get those results. So that's the point. And when you are reading these ones, say like I want to read a file. So I have like this simple.ini, right? If I want to read, so that's what I have written here. You use config.config parser, read the config, and with respect to this parser object or config object, you directly retrieve the key section and the key. For a section, if you give the key, you will get the values. For a section, you give the key, you get the values. And in the same fashion, if you go for like the hash section, if you want to check a particular section is present or not, you can specify that hash section, you get the values. You see here, if you want to check a particular section is present or not, same things. Means config parser module only we use for both the things. Options, everything is same. If you want to check whether it has a particular set of options, so that also we can check. Say, I am going for like another thing called as the multi-section.ini. I want to show like multiple sections. If you remember, I showed in the YAML file how to create like multiple sections by placing a dash. But here, just write like two sections directly. So like this, these config files are there. So with this, like we have touched the main files that we have. One last thing I thought of forgot is about the .pyw files. So these are like not present everywhere. So these are present and have their importance only in Windows. So PYW, the W means itself is Windows files. Similarly, you have like PyDLL. If you know DLL files, like that we have this one. So what is the point of this PYD files means? So I will tell you. Let's say I have a ordinary .py file, okay? Create so file. So then what will happen? If I navigate to this section and ask to execute this file, what will happen? If I say clear and if I say ls, I have only one file. Within that, I have the logic. If I say Python create file, then what will happen? It will create a new file, right? That's what you have seen. What are the content you give, it will execute. So it's a very simple Python file. The moment you execute it, it will do it, right? Now, for this itself, we can do the same file with a .pyw extension. So the same file I will do with .pyw extension. So the same content I will write. What are is there? So I am right now in Linux environment, but in Windows, when you are doing, what you will do, you do just a double tap or run. So generally how you do for an executable in Windows, /execution, right? So like that. I don't think it works in Linux. Let me do it. So if I say ls-l, you can see all the files. I will try here. It doesn't work. I'm no. If you want to change the mod, chmod +x. So create files.pyw. I created like a ls-l now. It is an executable /create so and so. I think like it is not executing directly because you don't know which one to execute. Hope you remember dot slash executions if you want to do. I told like, so dots, so shebang line I told, right? Use bin Python. If you don't give anything, so Linux environment don't know what to execute. So it is saying no such interpreter or so and so Python. So, sir, then how? If I say which Python, it will give the interpreter path. It is saying that this is the path where it is present. So you can give this path user bin so and so. Or so there is one more interesting thing. I think here we can give like this also, I guess. Which Python? I remember doing something like this some time back. Yeah, it's not working. Yeah, if I give this entire path, then it will work. If I clear. Yeah, it's working perfect. Yeah, this file is already present. If I say rm myfile.txt, if I say ls, I have only two things. If I do a dot slash execution, yes, it is creating, right? So that's the point. So, but this is like working like an ordinary file, but its importance is there in Windows. In Windows, what happens? You don't do an execution. You go to the download command line and do. You double tap of anything to if you want to get. So if you want to do the same thing, you can use it. And I think one last file I forgot is about the temp folders. So whenever you're doing a Linux automations and others, you will use these temp files a lot. Temp file means, say, temporarily you want to create a file for your purpose, but you want to delete afterwards. Say you are downloading some kind of content which is temporarily used or others. In that cases, you can use it. Say Linux 09 so and so. So clear and Python a so and so. By default, it will give this temp directory. So if seeing say get a temp directory, get temp directory or temp directory prefix and all these things. So if you want to work with the temp directory operations, so making use of these temp directory things, I want to create an automation. Maybe like you want to back up all the temp directories or you want to do something, so you can do. See here, so get temp directory means you got it, right? Similarly, you are creating like os.path.join of the current directory. For that, so current directory, you are creating like a folder of temp that you are assigning as like a temp directory. Means you are changing the temp directory structure and then you are doing operations. Or like if you want to do like a temp file, temporary file you want to create. So if you want to create a directory in that you want to add some things, you can do. Similarly, if you want to create a temporary file, so it will create within that you can write and you can use read and everything you can do and you can close. But sir, generally, in which case we use it? Let's say you are working in one of the, so you created an executable which users are using. Let's say WhatsApp client is there, the client. So if for your purpose, you want to store the information somewhere, right? For temporarily. So for all those things you can use. And similarly, a temp file with a context manager, same like that. So temp files we can create, work, and do. And the last point, I think I worked with all kinds of things. Yeah, there is one last point called as IO streams, which I forgot. So IO streams means like there is something called as IO module, which we can work. Same like what are the modules we have worked. There is one just another module. So instead of you working with the file systems, when you want to work, you can mimic a file by using these IO streams. In Python 2, it is called as string IO. In Python 3, it is called as IO. So you can read like a file, ordinary file only. You have some message. So generally, if you want to write to a file, so you generally write to a file, right? But as if you are reading from a file, if you want to get, you can pass. So generally, if you use open, so you do it, right? What you need to do, we should say like open of that file name .txt, and we should say like in a read mode, and then you get it. Same like that, if you want to create a file handler, you can use it. Generally, when you are working with unit tests, and if when you are want to mock a particular things, instead of actually going to the file, If you want to mimic as if you are going to a file or something, you can use this thing. So same like a file reader, you can read from there onwards. So it will also have like context, seek, and all these informations will be there here also. And I have written all the examples for this particular module, ipynb.txt. So you can make use of that to understand. So what are the different IO operations that it is facilitating? You can make use of that to understand. Say it has the input output operations both by the name it is saying. So in memory streams, as I told, you can use that to write content, and also you can write the content, and also we can use that to read the content also. Same like that operations you can do. Read line, all the operations. Similarly for bytes, you have bytes IO. So I told data is two types, text and like binary. For both the things, you have both. Same like that you can do. So reading from a buffer, writing from a buffer and all. So with this, we have completed